Always a delight to have you on. I am Pius Kojo Baka. Let's now settle for the details. And unemployment as a percentage of the labor force is expected to take slightly to 4% in 2023 from the 3.9% recorded in 2022. That's according to a new report by Fitch Solutions. It pointed out that unemployment will hold at 4%, and if accompanied by easing inflation, it will see a rise in real wages for many households. Here's more.
While this is a marginal increase that shouldn't have much bearing on consumer incomes, the unemployment rate, it said, has been rising since 2017 and is expected to continue on this path over the medium term and beyond. The UK-based firm pointed out that the size of the country's labor force is reduced by low life expectancy at around 64.3 years of age, which is itself a result of the low level of government expenditure on healthcare and the prevalence of waterborne diseases and chronic illnesses such as HIV/AIDS. A shortage of highly skilled workers, it added, also means employers have to import workers from abroad to fill the gaps in the domestic workforce. Furthermore, Fitch Solutions said the high levels of household debt remain a risk to the consumer outlook as it limits the future of availability of debt.
Now, household spending is set to reach 107.8 billion cedis this year, higher than the 101.9 billion cedis posted in 2019. According to Fitch Solutions' latest report dubbed Ghana Consumer Outlook, spending will expand to 112.1 billion cedis in 2024. Nonetheless, it said a stubbornly high level of inflation and fiscal consolidation policies will weigh on real purchasing power for many consumers in Ghana. Let's now hear more in this report.
The UK-based firm said interest rate hikes are pushing up household debt repayment costs, whilst the depreciating cedi is making consumer goods imports more expensive. It argued that the high levels of inflation, slower economic growth, rising levels of dissatisfaction with government policy, and interest rate hikes are all contributing to a downbeat Ghanaian consumer. The report furthered that inflationary pressures remain elevated in many markets. While the rate of price changes are slowing, they remain higher than central banks' targets and higher than what consumers have grown accustomed to, especially over the past decade. Fitch Solutions stressed that the impact will not be spread evenly across the different consumer spending segments, with the prices of some components such as rent, services, and some food items remaining stickier and elevated over half year 2023. It continued that if nominal wages cannot keep up with these high rates of inflation, consumers will continue to see erosions in their purchasing power.
All right, so let's make sense out of this revelation and get on to Zoom and speak with a lecturer at the University of Cape Coast, Seriam Kawo, for more on this. Pleasure you could join us on Business Live. First off, your thoughts about household spending projected to reach 107.8 billion cedis this year by Fitch Solutions.
All right, thank you very much. I am not surprised that Fitch is telling us that the household level income expenditure household expenditure will increase to that amount because we have high rate of inflation in the country. And once inflation goes up, it increases your expenditure over time. Imports that we have, the exchange rate is also affecting it. And so all these factors affect the rate of inflation and affect our expenditure during the period. And so we expect that we're going to find higher levels of expenditure within the economy. But looking at it from economics perspective, it might also mean that the higher expenditure might mean that there is more confidence in our economy, that spending is going, people are having confidence in the economy, and that is why they are spending so much to buy the goods and services. But we all know that these things are affected because of the rate of inflation and the high exchange rate that we have in our economy.
Great. I want you to explain to me how significant really this amount is, especially with respect to household spending.
Yeah, so when we look at the amount, 107.8 billion cedis within the Ghanaian economy, it is very significant. It might mean that more production will have to go on. There is going to be increase in job creation within the economy, because during this period that consumers are buying the products and they are spending more, it means that there is a need for us to produce, and more hands are needed to make sure that we fill the gap that is being created.
And I guess this is a great deal to the economy.
In our own economy.
Great. And its impact on the economy would be what?
Yes. So when you look at the impact on the economy, that will lead to job creation, and that will lead to more growth in the GDP to household expenditure ratio that we have. And that means that there is the need for government to make sure that they restructure the various sectors of the economy. For example, agriculture sector have to be restructured. The manufacturing sector have to be restructured to meet the current needs of the economy in terms of demand for goods and services. Production of raw materials and importing will not be the way to go. We need to industrialize our agricultural sector, and that would be able to help us. It also means that government will now have to also control the fiscal, the expenditure phase, because if you reduce your expenditure, it will go a long way to help the citizens in buying goods. So inflation will come down, and once inflation comes down, the citizens will end up being better off.
Mr. Kawo, Fitch also mentioned that the stubbornly high level of inflation, as it puts it, and of course fiscal consolidation policies will weigh on real purchasing power for many consumers in Ghana. Now the question is, how do we address or control this phenomenon to reduce the impact on disposable income going forward?
Yes, so if you want to reduce the impact on inflation, what it means is that Bank of Ghana will have to come in, because they are the ones who are mandated to control inflation and make sure that our currency is stable over time. And so Bank of Ghana will have to come in and readjust the policy rates that we have, making sure that the government instruments that is being sold on the market, especially the treasury bills that we have, the 91, the 182 days and 364 days rates will have to go down, because they all affect the borrowing limit of the banks that we have, because they determine the interest rates that we have. Once these things are down, the economy will be able to pick up. We also want government to reduce, as I've said earlier on, to reduce its expenditure, reduce the budget deficit that we have. Because once government is borrowing more on the amount you have borrowed, it affects everything. And so government should reduce the inflationary rates that we are looking at. We should produce more goods and
Rather unfortunate, Seram Carroll's lines keep freezing, and of course, we shall get that rectified and have him speak to us subsequently. But let's touch on the story. Government exceeded its treasury bills target by over 13% to the tune of 2.94 billion cedis, but interest rates continued to surge disturbingly. Now, according to the latest auction by the Bank of Ghana, interest rates reached almost 32%. Let's hear more for this story in this report.
The target for this auction was 2.60 billion cedis, but the bids tendered were 2.94 billion cedis. About 2.90 billion cedis were accepted. Majority of the bids came from the 91-day bill, in which about 2.206 billion cedis were tendered. However, the government accepted 2.202 billion cedis. For the 182-day bill, a little above 322 million cedis were offered, but the government accepted 289.19 million cedis. With regards to the one-year bill, all the bids worth 450.6 107.8 million cedis tendered were accepted. Meanwhile, the interest rate on the 3-month bill jumped to 27.78% from 27.36% the previous week. VAT of the 6-month bill went up by 0.40%. The 364-day yield also set 31.97% from the past week's 31.65%.
Now, the Ghana Hotels Association has petitioned the Speaker of Parliament over what it describes as unfair treatment by the Public Utilities Regulatory Commission. According to the association, the PURC has unfairly increased water and electricity tariffs for its members, making it difficult for them to operate. Let's go on Zoom and speak to the president of the association, Dr. Edward Akanyamike Jr., for more on this. Dr. Akanyamike Jr., good to know you are on with us. What do you want the Speaker of Parliament to do for your members?
Good evening, Pius. 3 things, basically. First of all, to get the PURC to revert the 167% tariff increase for water for February, March, April, and May. Secondly, we also want the Speaker to seek justification from the PURC on why they have migrated hotels from the non-residential category to the commercial category. And thirdly, we also want the Speaker to get the PURC to ensure that there is proper stakeholder engagement in future discussion on tariffs.
And in all your engagements with the PURC, what has been their explanations so far?
Well, after the petition was sent, we received a response, which I'm sure we'll discuss on this platform. Basically, they are justifying the increase with the fact that we have been migrated to the commercial category. But Pius, that migration was announced in May 2023, way beyond the February 2023 that we are talking about. So you migrated us without prior notice to us in February 2023, and then the announcement itself came in May. Now, with the letter, the response they gave to us, they are saying that that is where we are, and so that's what we're supposed to be paying, which we disagree. So we want the Speaker to help us to resolve this issue.
Help me understand how your members are coping under this current tariff regime.
Well, the thing is that every business will have to find a way to survive. And as we speak, what it means is that they are either a way to reduce costs in other areas of the operation, which will have some negative effect on the operations, or they are passing on to their clients, which in itself has its own challenges because of impact on patronage, both locally and internationally. Okay, so there's certainly a negative impact on this, on our operations, no matter how you look at it. But like I said, they will have to survive, will have to find ways, sometimes negative, they're coping.
Now, what will be your next line of action after this petition you submitted to the Speaker of Parliament, knowing very well that last week you embarked on a peaceful march?
Well, Pius, the Speaker's office is a very high office, and we have that in mind. We've tried various ways to address this matter. Unfortunately, this is how far we have come. I personally would want to see the Speaker's attention as the final point of redress. If the Speaker gives us that attention and holds a meeting with the PURC and rules on the matter or take the decision on the matter, I would want to see it as the final declaration of the issue. I believe that in all this, posterity will judge all of us as to whether our actions were in good faith or the PURC was acting in its right mandate. So I will see the petition to the Speaker as the terminal point, where any decision that comes from the Speaker is what we'll work with. After all, at the end of the day, we are on this economy, and if the PURC thinks that that's the best way to treat hotels, irrespective of all the contributions they are making to the economy, and everybody else is looking on for it to be well. But I think the Speaker will give a proper ruling on this, and that's what we are looking to.
And in the event that it doesn't turn out that way, what becomes of your members?
Well, you mean if he doesn't rule in our favor? Well, see, let me put it again this way. You remember the theme for our press conference was literally citizens, not spectators. In the past weeks, have acted as proper citizens. The sense that as a citizen, if something is going wrong, if you perceive something as not going right, you should have every right and opportunity to present your grievances and issues. And we've done that. We've petitioned the PRC several times. We've petitioned our GTA. It's gone to our minister. It's gone to Parliamentary Select Committee. This is how far we have come, even to the Speaker. So I believe we've done our part. We've behaved as responsible business people and as citizens of this country. So as to whether it goes in our favor or not, we've done our part. At the end of the day, like I said, posterity to judge all of us.
All right. Thank you very much, Dr. Edward Akanyamike Jr., for your time here on Business Live. He is the president of the Ghana Hotels Association, speaking to us there. You're still watching Business Live here with me, Pius Kojobaka. More after this break. Thanks for your company once again. Now, the Ghana Cocoa Board is rolling out a contributory scheme under the new Tier 3 pension scheme for cocoa farmers. Nearly 40 years after the institution of the Contributory Insurance for Farmers scheme, the fund is expected to receive its first contribution this year following several failed attempts. Approximately 74.5 million cedis is expected to be raised by Cocoa Board under the fund for 2023. Speaking at the opening of the 2023-2024 cocoa season in Tepa, President Akufo-Addo revealed that enrollment has commenced with the expectation of having more cocoa farmers join the scheme.
Cocoa Board has also rolled out a contributory scheme under the new 3-tier pension scheme for cocoa farmers. Enrollment has started and will continue and will thus make way for contributions from farmers and Cocoa Board in the coming season. Cocoa Board is expected to contribute some 74.5 million cedis to the fund this year. The scheme will enable cocoa farmers also to save towards their retirement so as to guarantee income security, improve living standards in their old age, and motivate the youth to venture into cocoa farming. This is the first successful attempt to give effect to Section 26, Clause 1 of the Ghana Cocoa Board Act, 1984 PNDCL 84, which provides for the setting up of the scheme. This has been made possible because of the implementation of the cocoa managing system, which has provided the needed data and digital foundation for the scheme to be successful.
Now, some cocoa farmers in the Ashanti region are convinced that the new producer price of cocoa will discourage smuggling of the commodity to neighboring countries and exchange of arable farmlands for illegal mining. President Akufo-Addo over the weekend announced a new upward adjustment for the cash crop from 800 to 1,308 cedis per bag. The price increase is the highest witnessed across West Africa in the last 15 years. My colleague Emmanuel Bright-Kweku has more.
For many years, cocoa farming communities on Ghana's fringes are reportedly known to smuggle cocoa beans to neighboring countries, mainly Ivory Coast and Togo, a perennial problem that has cost the country large quantities of cocoa beans for exports. Ghana's recent economic meltdown, coupled with the craze to excavate gold by artisanal miners, have also contributed significantly to the loss of arable cocoa farmlands. Reports suggest that in the 2022-2023 crop year alone, Ghana lost 150,000 metric tons of beans to smuggling and illegal mining. Speaking at the opening of the 2023-2024 cocoa season, Food and Agric Minister Brian Echampong bemoaned the activities of smugglers.
There have been several reports of smuggling of cocoa from Ghana to our neighboring countries, and this has contributed adversely to the country's production capacity. The sad part of this unfortunate situation is that the individuals who are engaged in this nefarious act of smuggling are neither the farmers nor cocoa board who have contributed to the production of the cocoa, but rather private merchants who regrettably contribute absolutely nothing to the country's production capacity.
A primary reason fueling the seemingly unending act was the huge cost differential between the countries. In tackling the menace, the Ghanaian and Ivorian governments adopted and implemented the living income differential to cushion farmers against low international market price. President Akufo-Addo says the scheme has increased the average income of farmers.
One of the first decisions that I took as President of the Republic to sign a strategic partnership agreement with the great President of the Republic of Cote d'Ivoire, His Excellency Alassane Ouattara, which united the cocoa sectors of the two nations and helped us tackle common challenges in the industry. This cooperation has already yielded good results for the industry as we've been able to adopt and implement the living income differential, LID. The LID has increased the average farmer's income by $700 per ton.
Under the theme Securing Decent Incomes for Cocoa Farmers, the opening of the new crop season saw the government announce a historic 63.5% upward adjustment on the price of cocoa. A bag of cocoa would now go for 1,308 cedis, while a ton sells at 20,948 cedis. For a number of farmers, the new price would improve their livelihoods as it discourages smuggling and exchange of farmlands for illegal mining. The price was especially good in Cote d'Ivoire, but I doubt any farmer would smuggle cocoa to the country given the new price adjustment.
From now onwards, the pruning, the hand pollination, all the agronomic practices, we are going to make sure that it is being done well so that the production will be increased.
The government, meanwhile, says it remains committed to eliminating cocoa smuggling.
Thanks so much for watching Business Life. I am Pius Kojo Baka. For more stories, you can get them on myjoyonline.com/business. Do enjoy the rest of our programs. Bye.